What's going on? Today I thought I'd give you guys some behind the scene of how I look at some investment properties before I invest in real estate. One of the most important things that I do when I decide to invest in a real estate project is to think about my exit strategy. It's extremely important in real estate to think about your exit strategy even before you buy the property. Why is that important? Because it can tell you how to finance that deal. It can tell you how much work you should put into the property, what kind of administrative, legal, municipal things have to be put into that project before you even acquire it. Exit strategy is also important because what may seem like a bad deal in one scenario, one exit strategy, could be a good investment in a different exit strategy. So let me give you guys an example about looking at the exit strategy. My market is Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts to be specific. Massachusetts, if you're familiar with it, it's an extremely expensive state. As a matter of fact, Boston is the top 4 most expensive cities in the US to buy real estate or to invest in real estate. So a typical debt service coverage ratio is difficult to obtain in a market like Boston. And what is a debt service coverage ratio? Is the percentage of the rent that is coming in, how much of that is going to cover the debt on a monthly basis or an annual basis. So, for instance, if my mortgage payment is $1,000 and my rent is $1,000, this debt service coverage ratio is 1. If you're buying a property that's $500,000 and your rent is not going to cover the debt, that's a pretty big risk. But a different exit strategy might make that project appealing. For instance, if you can rehab the property and turn it into condos, and then subdivide the property, create the master deed, the unit deed, and the bylaws, and then dispose of the property to 2 or 3 different owners. Because you see, if you are doing a project that costs $500,000, there's only a certain pool of people that can buy that project. But if you're doing a project and now you've broken down the price and the property size into clear, defined ways that property could be owned, you're increasing the pool of people that can purchase that property. The New England market is full of multi-unit, multi-family properties. So there's a lot of places where there are 2 units. There's a lot of places that there are 3 units, also known as a triple decker. And what people have been doing for the past couple of decades is to buy these multi-family 2 or 3 family buildings, rehabbing them, and then subdividing them into individual deeded units. In a condominium, you will have a master deed, you will have a unit deed, and then you will have the bylaws. And each one of those units could be sold to a different owner. So in a project like a $500,000 project that you're buying a multifamily and spending about $100,000 to $150,000 rehabbing it, putting your end investment dollar somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000 or $650,000 could yield a profitable return if you're able to get $750,000 or $800,000 as a total disposition dollar for that project. So thinking about the exit strategy is critical. Now, if you're going to be doing a condo conversion, you have to be careful. One of the obstacles that you have to overcome is how you finance that project. For instance, instead of financing it through a traditional mortgage or through a hard money lender, you have to make sure that you negotiate inside of the contract what's called a partial release. A partial release allows the lender to give you a clean title, free and clear of any encumbrance, as soon as you have a buyer, without forcing you to refinance the property in its entirety. Partial release could save you 1, 2, 3 points on the property. So if we go back to that example of a $500,000 property, it could save you $5,000, $10,000, maybe even $15,000 on that rehab. So you have to be careful about financing it. another important point of why it is important to think about the exit strategy before you buy the property. Now, another thing that you can think about is the quality of rehab that you do on a condo conversion or on a fix and flip. May be that you need a higher quality, higher degree of material in that project than if you were going to turn it into a rental. A lot of times you see people rehabbing properties for the purpose of renting it out, and they put mediocre content in the property because they assume that automatically as soon as they put it out for rent, tenants might damage it. Now, there are some valid points to that, but there's also some invalid points to that. So for instance, if you, as a practice, put in high quality material in the property, you may find yourself where the need of the exit strategy changes, and when you dispose of the property, you've already done the quality work, the quality product, quality material to dispose of that property. So you have to think about those kinds of scenarios when you're buying an investment property. So an exit could be renting it out, refinancing it and renting it out, particularly if you took a hard money loan or asset-based loan on that project. Or it could be simply selling the property through subdivision, like a condo conversion, or selling the property outright because you got a good deal on a property that needed some rehab, and then you've done that for the customer, and then you sold it to the end user. So some of the things that you need to think about are exit strategy, financing, and how the process along those lines can be built from that point. So if you like that content, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment below, and let me know what other things that you look for when you are buying an investment property. We have a webinar coming up this week. Don't forget to sign up. It's free, and we'll talk about these kinds of topics in that webinar. See you there.